I've never been someone who's a huge fan of Churchill. I generally have been more interested in the little people, should we say. And then I read this script and I discovered a Churchill who was humanised and in a way taken down off the plinth and given space to be as flawed and as difficult and as great as he was. Well, Churchill himself wrote more words than Shakespeare, and there's been even more written about him. So it would have been impossible to read everything, but I read as much as I could. His letters to his wife and hers back to him were very, very useful as well, to try and understand the character behind the icon.
You have the full weight of the world on your shoulders.
We're facing certain defeat on land, the annihilation of our army, and imminent invasion. We must negotiate peace talks.
When will the lesson be learned? You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth!
Nonsense. The only slippery slope.
Would you stop interrupting me while I am interrupting you?
I think one of the things I found about Churchill was that he was very, very funny and used humour to manage life and the more difficult aspects of life. And so to bring that humour, to bring that thriller tension, all of these ideas that maybe feel quite modern in this context, one tried to invest the film with.
I speak to you for the first time as Prime Minister.
The Germans have encircled 60 British and French divisions. We are looking at a collapse of Western Europe within the next few days.
How long have they got if we don't rescue them?
Maybe 2 days. We would need a miracle to get our men out.
You know, Churchill is often portrayed as being born in a bad mood. You know, he's grumpy and he's fat and he's... whereas actually the Churchill that I saw was kind of manic and energised and incredibly intense. His brain worked at 500 miles an hour. Everyone had a lot of difficulty keeping up with him. And as we know from Gary's work, he is particularly good at intensity, and so I wanted someone who had that kind of manic energy, really. Sometimes, you know, if you meet an actor who you really admire, like when I first met Gary, I was kind of in awe of him. He was, you know, a hero of mine since I was a teenager, with films like Sid and Nancy and Leon and so on. But very quickly, when you actually start getting down to the nuts and bolts of creating the performance and creating the film, you forget all about that and it just becomes about the work. Well, we spent at least 6 months preparing. Gary prepared in his garage every day for 6 months, and we did a lot of makeup tests. And the makeup was very vital. You know, it needed to hit the sweet spot between being looking like Churchill and at the same time allowing the audience access to Gary's performance. So there were many iterations of that makeup. The first one was too much and he looked like he had a raw chicken on his face, a bit disturbing. And then there was too little and it looked nothing like Churchill. And finally we found this kind of sweet spot where he was able to perform and to give this extraordinary performance.
You decided to work with Kristen Scott Thomas.
Yeah.
Why her on this character?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, she was the first and only person I thought of. At first, she turned the role down. And so I said, I persuaded her to allow me an hour of her time to try and, you know, persuade her that she should really do it. So I came to Paris and met her at the Café Flore, and she is so elegant and so sharp and has this kind of, and a little bit neurotic as well, which I think Kristen was. You know, life wasn't always easy for Kristen. she wasn't always easy in her skin. And so I felt that Kristen was the perfect person for the role. At that meeting at the Café Flore, there was a moment where Kristen looked down and said, Clementine had very elegant ankles. And I knew at that point that I had her.